The organizing industry is worth billions of dollars, and it's not solving anything because the organizing industry doesn't exist to fix the clutter, it exists because of the clutter. It's not the cure, it's the symptom, and I can prove that. But to do that, I had to stop looking at what the West invented in the last 20 years and start looking at what every culture on Earth has been doing for thousands of years. Here's something that should stop you in your tracks. The self-storage industry barely existed before the 1970s. Today, there are over 52,000 self-storage facilities in the United States alone. That's more than every McDonald's, every Starbucks, and every Subway combined. Think about that. An entire industry, one of the fastest growing industries in the country, exists for one reason. People have more stuff than fits in their homes. And instead of asking why we have so much, we build an industry to help us keep it. And then, on top of that, we build another industry, the organizing industry, to help us manage everything that didn't go into storage. New methods, new system, new products, new books. Every few years, someone reinvents the wheel and tells you this is the way to finally get your home under control. Buy these bins, follow this system, sort by color, sort by category, fold things this way, label everything, and for a while, it works. Your pantry looks beautiful. Your closet is sorted, you feel in control. And then, 6 months later, you're back where you started. Because nothing about the way you live has actually changed. You just reorganize the overflow. Every organizing method I've seen in the last 2 decades starts from the same assumption. You have too much stuff. Let me help you deal with it. None of them ask the real question. Why do you have too much stuff in the first place? So I stopped looking at modern methods. I went back, way back, and I asked how have humans organized themselves for thousands of years across every continent long before there were storage units and organizing influencers. And what I found changed the way I think about everything I do. I looked at organizing wisdom from 6 different cultures across 5 continents. Traditions that are hundreds, sometimes thousands of years old. They couldn't be more different from each other. Different countries, different religions, different centuries, different climates. But they all agreed on one thing. Let me show you. In Sweden, there's a word that has no direct translation into English. Lagom. It roughly means not too much, not too little. Just right, just enough. Lagom isn't an organizing method. You can't buy it. There's no book, no course, no 5-step system. It's a cultural value. It's really woven into how Swedish people eat, how they dress, how they work, furnish their homes. In the Lagom culture, excess isn't just impractical. It's actually poor taste. Having more than you need isn't a sign of success. It's a sign that you've lost the plot. And here's what fascinates me. As a professional organizer myself, Swedish homes are some of the most organized in the world. Not because Swedes are better at organizing, but because there's simply less to organize. The culture prevents clutter before it forms. No system required. In Hindu and yoga philosophy, there's a concept called Aparigraha. It's one of the 5 yamas, the 5 ethical foundations described by Patanjali over the 2,000 years ago. Aparigraha means no possessiveness, non-grasping. Take only what you need and release what no longer serves you. But it goes deeper than just physical objects. Aparigraha teaches that clinging to things, to outcomes, to ideas about how your life should look is a source of suffering. Not just inconvenience, but real suffering. And that reframe actually hit me really hard. In the West, we treat clutter as a logistic problem. I just need a better system. But Aparigraha says the clutter isn't the problem. The clinging is the problem. The inability to let go of objects, of the fantasy life they present, of the money you spend on them. 2,000 years ago, a philosophy on the other side of the world already understood what we are still struggling to learn. The tighter you hold on, the less free you are. Buddhism teaches that the attachment is the root of suffering. The Sanskrit word is Upadana, clinging, and the Buddha was very specific. We cling to sensory pleasures, to views and opinions, to habits and rituals, to our sense of self. And what is a house full of clutter if not a physical manifestation of clinging? Every object you can't let go of is something you're clinging to. The clothes from a life that you no longer live, the kitchen gadgets you bought for the person you thought you would become, the gifts you keep out of guilt, not out of love. Buddhist monks live with almost nothing. And it's not deprivation, it's liberation. When you own less, there is less to maintain, less to worry about, less standing between you and the actual experience of life. We look at a monk's empty room and think, how sad. They look at our full houses and think the same thing. In Japanese culture, there's a concept called ma. It's written with the character for space or for pause. And it means something that doesn't exist in Western design thinking. Ma is deliberate, sacred use of empty space. Not negative space, not wasted space, not space you haven't filled yet. Space that is intentional left open because the emptiness itself has value. In a Japanese tea room, the empty wall isn't waiting for a painting. The bare floor isn't waiting for furniture. The emptiness is the point. It's actually where your mind is able to rest. This is the exact opposite of how we think about space in the West. In the West, empty space is a problem to solve. An empty shelf is a shelf that needs something on it. An empty corner needs a basket or a plant or a piece of furniture. And Ma says no, that empty shelf is doing its job. That corner is breathing room for your eyes, for your mind, for your life. When I think about all the organizing content I see online, the perfectly filled shelves, the color-coded closets where every single centimeter is accounted for, I think about Ma. And I think we have confused full with organized. They are not the same thing. In many African cultures, there's a philosophy called Ubuntu. It's a Nguni Bantu word and it translates roughly to I am because we are. Ubuntu is a philosophy built on interconnectedness. The idea that your well-being is inseparable from the well-being of your community. That no one exists alone. No one thrives alone. And here's what that means for things. In an Ubuntu framework, possessions aren't individual. They are communal. That means you don't accumulate for yourself. You share with your community. The goal isn't to have more, it's to make sure everyone has enough. That completely flips the Western organizing problem on its head. In our culture, organizing is deeply individual. My closet, my kitchen, my stuff. The entire industry is built around helping individuals manage their personal access. Ubuntu asks a different question entirely. Why are you accumulating for yourself what could be shared? Why do you own 3 of something when your neighbor owns none? It is not an organizing method. It's a world view where the need to organize barely arises, because you only keep what's needed and the rest flows to the community where it's actually needed more. And then there's one person from ancient history who took all of this to its most radical conclusion. Diogenes of Sinope, a Greek philosopher who lived around 400 BC. He owned almost nothing. 1 cloak, 1 bowl, 1 staff. He slept in a large ceramic jar in the marketplace. And he was considered one of the wisest men alive. One day, he saw a child drinking water from the river using only his cupped hands. And Diogenes looked at his bowl, his single bowl that he owned, and threw it away. He said, "A child has beaten me in simplicity." And the most famous story about Diogenes goes like this. Alexander the Great, the most powerful man in the world back then, came to visit him. He found Diogenes sitting in the sun outside his jar. Alexander said, "I am Alexander the Great. Ask me for anything you want and I will give it to you." And Diogenes looked up and said, "Yes. Could you step aside? You're blocking my sunshine." The most powerful man in the world offered him anything, and the philosopher wanted nothing, except the one thing the powerful man was taking from him: space, light, simplicity. That was 2,400 years ago. And honestly, it might be the most relevant organization advice I've ever heard. And finally, across indigenous cultures around the world, in the Americas, in Australia, and the Pacific Islands, across Africa, there's a principle that appears again and again, sometimes spoken, sometimes simply lived. We don't own the earth. The earth doesn't belong to us. Everything is borrowed. In indigenous worldviews, humans are not owners. We are stewards. We don't possess the land, or the water, or the animals, or the resources. We hold them for a time, and then we pass them on. And that principle extends to everything. To the tools, to the clothes, to shelter. These aren't yours. They are entrusted to you, and what is entrusted to you, you take care of. You don't hoard it, you don't waste it, you honor it, and when the time comes, you let it go. Think about how different that is from how we relate to our things. We say my shirt, my house, my stuff. We feel ownership so deeply that letting go of a 10-euro shirt we haven't worn in 3 years feels like losing a part of ourselves. Indigenous wisdom says it was never yours. You were just looking after it for a while. And when you understand that letting go isn't loss, it's returning something to where it belongs. And there we have it. 6 cultures, 6 continents, thousands of years apart. Swedish Lagom, Indian Aparigraha, Buddhist non-attachment, Japanese Ma, African Ubuntu, Greek philosophy, and indigenous wisdom from every corner of the earth. They couldn't be more different. Different gods, different languages, different climates, different foods. But every single one of them had the same thing, something our Western culture lost. They all had a word for enough. Lagom, which translates to just enough. Aparigraha means take out what you need. Ma, the value of emptiness. Ubuntu, enough for everyone. And Upadana, suffering comes from clinging to more. Every culture on every continent for thousands of years built a ceiling into the way they lived. Like a natural limit, a point where you stop accumulating and actually start living. And modern Western culture is the first civilization in human history that systematically removed this ceiling limitless. Cheap manufacturing, credit cards, same-day delivery, bigger houses, and when the house still got full, storage units. And when the storage units weren't enough, an organizing industry to help you manage all this overflow. We didn't just lose the word enough. We built an entire economy on the principle that enough doesn't exist, that there's always more to want, more to buy, more to store. And then we wonder why our homes feel out of control. And here's what really got me when I started researching this. We tend to look at many of these cultures and think they have less because they have to, because they don't have access to what we have, because they haven't have developed as far as we have. But the data tells a completely different story. There is something called the Happy Planet Index. It measures how effectively countries turn to their resources into long, happy, sustainable lives. Not just how much money they make, but how much well-being they generate per resource consumed. And the countries at the top, Costa Rica, Vanuatu, El Salvador, Nicaragua, Colombia, countries that consume a fraction of what Western nations consume and consistently report higher well-being relative to their footprint. And then there's Bhutan, a small country in the Himalayas that made a radical decision decades ago. Instead of measuring success by gross domestic product, by how much the economy grows, how much people produce, how much people buy, they measure gross national happiness. They literally built the entire national policy around the question, are our people happy? Not are our people consuming? And Harvard, one of the most respected universities in the world, they ran a study on happiness that lasted over 8 years. 8 years of following the same people, tracking what actually makes a good life. Their conclusion? It's not money, it's not possession, it's not career success. It's relationships. the quality of your connections with other people. And that is Ubuntu. I am because we are. These cultures don't have less because they're behind. They have less because they're understanding something that we forgot. More things don't make a better life. They chose community over accumulation, space over stuff, enough over always wanting more. And they're not less happy for it. In many measurable ways, they are actually happier. So, what does this mean for you? Right now, in your actual home with your actual life. You're not going to move to Bhutan. You're not going to live in a barrel like Diogenes. And also, I'm not asking you to. But here's what 5,000 years of global wisdom taught me. 3 shifts that are so simple they almost feel too obvious. But they will change more than any organizing method ever could. The first one. Before you organize anything, ask the Aparigraha question. Not, where should I put this? Not, does it spark joy? Those questions still assume the object stays. Ask, do I need this or do I just have this? There's a difference between something that serves your life and something that just ended up in it. Aparigraha says, if it's not needed, let it flow to where it's needed more. Number 2, create ma, not storage. The goal of organizing is not to fit more things into your space more efficiently. That's what the industry wants you to believe, because it sells bins. The goal is to have spaces in your home with nothing in them. One empty shelf, one clear surface, one corner with breathing room. That emptiness isn't a failure. It's not something you need to fill. It's ma. It's sacred space. It's where your mind rests when the day is heavy. Start with just one. Just one surface, clear it and leave it empty, on purpose. And 3, find your Lagom. Enough looks different for everyone. It's not a number. It's not a capsule wardrobe with exactly 37 pieces. It's not somebody else's after photo. Your enough is the point where your home serves your life without demanding your attention. Where you stop spending your evenings maintaining, sorting, tidying, reorganizing, and start actually living. Ask yourself, what would my home look like if everything in it was enough and nothing in it was too much? That's your Lagom. And only you can define it. 5,000 years of wisdom. Every continent, every culture, they didn't agree on God. They didn't agree on food, or family, or government, or art. But they all agreed on this. Know when you have enough. The answer was never a better system. It was never a better bin. It was never a new method with a catchy name. The answer, the one answer that has worked everywhere, for everyone, for thousands of years, is beautifully, radically simple. Know what enough looks like for your life. And stop before you pass it. 5,000 years and we're still learning the same lesson. Maybe it's time we actually listen. If this inspired you, maybe it's time for you to let go. If you're still having trouble with it, I have something for you. I've created a simple app that helps you navigate through the different guilt that arise when you want to let go of things. Just click the link in the downloads and I'm happy to send it to you.